You are not lacking time to change your life. You are just giving your most valuable hours to things that cannot take you far. In this video, you will understand why just a few hours each week can completely change your direction, why many people do not fail in their jobs but fail in the time when they are completely free, and how to turn part-time ambition into real freedom. And at the end of the video, you will realize something that very few people understand. The real miracle is not in the extra money you earn, but in the person you are forced to become in the process. Look at your familiar daily life. You wake up, go to work, complete what is required, then return home. A quick meal, a little rest. Then you sit down just to watch a little. But that little turns into the whole evening, day after day, week after week, and then one day you ask yourself, why am I still here after all these years? The truth is, your life is not only built during working hours. It is most clearly built during the hours when no one is controlling you. You are not failing because you lack opportunities. You are not falling behind because you lack ability. You are simply letting your free hours pass without creating any value. And that is exactly where everything starts to change. If you can reclaim even a small portion of that time, just a few hours each week, and use it to learn, to build, to move forward, you do not just change your income. You change your entire life trajectory. So start with a simple question, but one that can change everything. Are you using your time, or are you just killing time? And you should stay, because what you are about to hear next may make you rethink the way you live every day. Lesson 1. Your spare time is telling the truth about your future. I have met many people who told me, look at my job, you will know who I am. But in my experience, that has never been the complete truth. If you really want to know who someone is becoming, do not look at what they do when they are paid. Look at what they do when no one asks them to. Look at their evenings. Look at the hours when they are completely free, because that is where their future is being written little by little. You can be very hard working at your job. You can complete every task on time with full responsibility. But let me ask you a simple question. After work ends, what do you do with the rest of your day? Do you use it to recover or to move forward? Do you use it for entertainment or for building? Because the difference between those two is not in the immediate feeling. It is in where you will stand 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. I have observed a very common habit. A person finishes the workday, goes home, has dinner, then tells themselves, just rest a little. They sit down, open their phone, watch a video, then another video, then just a little more. And before they realize it, the evening is gone. There is nothing wrong with resting. But the problem is, most people do not just rest. They completely lose control of that time. You see, your job pays for your present, but how you use your free time is silently deciding your future value. No noise, no clarity, no one reminding you. But it is happening every day. I often tell people something they do not like to hear. You do not need more time to change your life. You just need to use the time you already have better. Because if you cannot do something meaningful in 1 or 2 hours each day, then you will not do it, even if you have the whole day. Imagine this. If you only spend 1 hour each evening to learn a new skill, read a book, build a small project, and you do that 5 days a week, in 1 year, you will have invested more than 250 hours in yourself. That is no longer a little effort. That is an advantage most people will never have. But what matters more is not the number. It is the person you are becoming in the process. Every time you choose to learn instead of scrolling your phone, every time you choose to build instead of procrastinate, you are sending a very clear signal to yourself. I am someone who can control my life. And here is what most people do not realize. Free time is not just empty space. It is a test. A simple test, but a very honest one. No boss, no deadline, no one watching you, only you and your choices. So pause for a moment and ask yourself, if someone looked at how you spend your evenings, what would they guess about your future? Think very carefully, because the answer to that question is exactly where everything begins to change. And once you understand this, you will start to see your evenings in a completely different way. No longer time to kill, but time to build. And that is only the first step, because something even more dangerous is not that you lack ambition. It is that your ambition may be quietly dying every day. We are going to talk about that right now. Lesson 2. Most dreams don't die in public. They die at night. I want to tell you something that you may not like to hear. Most people do not lose their dreams in one big failure. Not in a bad day. Not in one obvious wrong decision. Their dreams do not die where everyone can see. They die in very ordinary evenings. You may still go to work every day. You still complete your job. You still say that you want to change. But when the day ends, when no one is telling you what to do, you automatically start choosing the easiest option. A little entertainment, a little relaxation, a little I can do it tomorrow. And those little things are silently eroding what you once wanted to become. I have observed this in my own life and in thousands of others. No one wakes up one morning and says, "Today I will give up my dream." No one. But they do it little by little. They delay starting. They delay learning. They delay trying. And then they delay so long that the dream is no longer alive enough to survive. You see, ambition does not need a big shock to disappear. It only needs the repetition of small wrong choices. Every evening you say, "I am tired today. I will start tomorrow." Every weekend you say, "When I have more time." Every time you feel unmotivated and decide to do nothing. All of those things do not look dangerous. But combined, they create a very strong force pulling you back to average. And what is the most dangerous part? You do not realize it is happening. No alarm, no clear signs, only time passing and you staying in the same place. I often say, ambition does not die because you are not good enough. It dies because you are too comfortable. Be honest with yourself for a moment. How many times have you said you would start something, but then you did not? How many evenings did you know exactly what you should do, but you chose not to do it? This is not a problem of ability. This is a problem of the standard you accept for yourself. If you accept that each evening passes without progress, then you are teaching yourself that progress is optional, not doing it is fine. And when that belief repeats long enough, it becomes part of who you are. But here is the good news. If your dream can die little by little, then it can also be revived the same way. Not by one big decision, not by explosive motivation, but by small choices repeated. Just one evening you decide to do things differently. Just 1 hour you decide to focus. Just one action you decide not to delay. You do not need to change your whole life immediately. You just need to stop letting it pass unconsciously. Remember this. Your dream does not require you to be perfect. It only requires you not to leave it behind every evening. So pause and ask yourself a very real question. What have you delayed for too long? Just because you keep choosing comfort over progress? Because the moment you answer that question is the moment you begin to take back control. And when you begin to take back control, you will realize something very important. You do not need to take a big leap to change your life. You just need to start in a smarter way. And that is exactly what we are going to talk about next. Lesson 3. Part-time effort is safer than a dramatic leap. I have met many people who told me, "I want to change my life, but I am afraid of failure, afraid of losing stability, afraid of making a wrong decision and having to pay the price." And then they think the only way to change is to do something big. Quit their job, start over, bet everything. But let me tell you something very important. Success rarely begins with a leap. It begins with a small step. The idea of a big leap sounds very attractive. It makes you feel strong, decisive, bold. But precisely because it is too big, most people never dare to start. They wait for the perfect time. They wait until they are ready enough. They wait for a clear sign. And that almost never comes. I have learned a very simple lesson. You do not need to leave your current life to build a new one. You can start right within the life you already have. You still go to work every day. You still keep your stable income. You still maintain your responsibilities. But you add one small thing, 1 hour each evening, a small project, a skill you begin to learn. No noise, no one paying attention, no pressure to succeed immediately. And that is the power of part-time ambition. It does not require reckless courage. It only requires you to be serious enough not to ignore the hours you already own. Think about this. If you cannot spend 510 hours each week on something you say is important to you, then it is not a dream. It is just an idea you like thinking about. Part-time effort is a very honest test. No one forces you, no deadlines, no external pressure, only you and your promise to yourself. And if you can keep that promise, even when you are tired, busy, unmotivated, then you are building something more important than any skill. You are building discipline. I still remember my early days. I did not quit my job. I did not have a perfect plan. I just did one very simple thing. I stopped waiting for life to change and started changing how I used my time. One call, one book, one small idea tested, very small things. But when they started to produce results, even just a little, my belief began to change. That is what many people do not understand. You do not need belief to start. You need small actions to create belief. And here is a big advantage of starting part-time. You are allowed to be wrong. You can try. You can fail. You can adjust, all while your life remains stable. You are not under pressure to succeed immediately. You are not forced to make it work at all costs. You are learning. You are experimenting. You are becoming better. And over time, what starts as a small experiment will become something more serious. A source of income, a valuable skill, a new direction. And one day, you will no longer feel like you are dreaming. You are building. So do not wait for a big leap. Do not wait until you feel ready enough. Because readiness does not come before action. It comes after you start. Start from where you are, with what you have, in the time you control. And ask yourself one question. If you are truly serious about your life, why have you not started with 1 hour a day? Because once you do that, a new door will begin to open. Not just financially, but in how you see yourself. And that is where a deeper change begins. We will talk about that right now. Lesson 4. A second income is really a second identity. I want you to remember this. Your job may pay you, but it does not define who you are. It only reflects what you do to make a living. But when you start creating value outside your main job, something very different happens. You do not just earn extra money. You begin to become a different person. The first time you earn income from your own effort, not because someone assigned you work, not because you had to, but because you created value yourself, something changes inside you. The amount may be small. It may not compare to your salary, but that feeling is not small at all. Because for the first time, you clearly see that. I can create value without fully depending on my job. That is not just money. That is an awakening. Before you might have thought, I need this job to live. But then you begin to think, I can create more if I continue to develop myself. That is when you shift from being paid to becoming someone who creates value. And that difference changes everything. You begin to see the world differently. You do not just see problems. You start to see opportunities. You do not just follow instructions. You begin to think, how can I do this better? You do not just complete tasks. You begin to ask, how can I create real value? That is the second income mindset. But deeper than that, it is a second identity. You are no longer just an employee. You begin to become someone capable of creating results. And remember this, a company can stop paying you. The market can change. Your job can disappear. But the person you become, no one can take that away. Every skill you learn after work, every experience you gain, every time you solve a real problem, all of that belongs to you forever. That is why I always say, a second income is not the main goal. It is just the result. The real goal is becoming more valuable. And when you become more valuable, money will follow. But here is the most interesting part. When you start to have a second source of income, you no longer feel trapped. You no longer depend entirely on one place. You no longer feel like everything will collapse if you lose your job. You begin to have options. And freedom is not about doing nothing. Freedom is having the ability to choose. Choose to stay. Choose to leave. Choose to change. Choose to build a new direction. That is the real power of part-time ambition. It is not about how much extra you earn. It is about how many doors you open for yourself. And I want you to ask yourself one question. If your current job disappeared tomorrow, what would you have left? Do you have any skills that can generate income? Do you have any value the market needs? Do you have enough confidence to start again? If the answer is no, that is not a problem. That is an opportunity. Because you do not need to change everything immediately. You just need to start building little by little, after work, in small pockets of time. And when you do that long enough, you will realize that you are no longer the same person. You are no longer just working to survive. You begin to live with a clearer direction. And that is only the next step. Because once you begin to see results, even if they are very small, a new force will appear. Something very powerful. It will pull you forward even when you are tired. We call it momentum. And that is what we are going to talk about next. Lesson 5. Small wins create momentum that changes your life. I want you to understand something that many people overlook. You do not need a big win to change your life. You only need a small win, but one that is yours. Most people wait for a breakthrough, a big opportunity, a clear result, a moment when everything starts to change. But the truth is, those things rarely appear before you have momentum. And momentum does not come from big leaps. It comes from small steps repeated. Think back to the first time you completed something you started yourself. Not because someone asked you to, not because you were forced, but because you decided to do it. Maybe it was just a day you did not procrastinate. An evening you finished learning a skill, a small project you completed, someone you helped, and they truly needed it. Those things may look small, but the feeling you get from them is not small at all, because for the first time, you have proof that I can do what I say, and when you have that proof, something very important begins to change: belief. Before, you may have doubted yourself. I do not know if I can do this. I am not sure if this is worth it. But after a small win, you no longer need to believe. And the difference between believing and knowing is where everything starts to move. I call it the law of momentum. Once you start and you get a small result, everything becomes a little easier. You no longer have to force yourself as much to begin. You no longer feel that everything is too far away. You have gone from nothing to something small, and something small is always more powerful than nothing. From there, one action leads to the next action. One result leads to the next result. You begin to build a chain, and that chain is what pulls you forward. You see, motivation is not something you need before you start. Motivation is something that appears after you make progress. That is why so many people get stuck. They wait for motivation before taking action, but they do not realize that action is what creates motivation. So they wait and never begin. Meanwhile, others start very small. 1 hour each evening, one step each day, no noise. Not perfect, but consistent. And then something interesting happens. Momentum begins to spread into other areas of life. You do not just perform better in your personal project. You start to have more energy at work. You speak more confidently. You think more clearly. People begin to notice it. They do not know exactly what you are doing, but they see that you are different. That is the power of momentum. It does not just change the results you create. It changes how you show up in the world. I still remember my early days. The only thing that kept me going was not money, not a big goal, but the feeling that I am moving forward. And once you have that feeling, you will not want to go back to how things were before. So do not underestimate small wins. Do not think they are not enough, because every small win is a brick. And when you place enough bricks, you will have a foundation. And from that foundation, you can build anything. Ask yourself one question. Are you waiting for a big breakthrough, or are you ready to create a small win today? Because your answer will determine whether you ever build momentum or not. And once you have momentum, a new challenge will appear. Not starting, but maintaining. Because to walk two paths at once, your main job and your dream, you will need something stronger than motivation. You will need discipline. Lesson 6. Comfort is expensive. I want you to look back at something very familiar. An ordinary evening. You come home after a long day of work. You are tired. You want to rest. And that is completely reasonable. But then you tell yourself something very familiar. Today, I deserve to relax. And you sit down, open your phone, turn on a video. Just a little. But you already know what happens next. One video turns into 3. 3 turns into 10. And before you realize it, the whole evening is gone. There is nothing wrong with resting. But the problem is not that you rest. The problem is that you cannot control when to stop. You see, comfort is not an obvious enemy. It does not come like a storm. It comes like a very gentle invitation. Just today, just a little. You deserve it, and that is exactly what makes it dangerous. Because it does not take your life away immediately. It takes it 1 hour at a time. Every evening you choose comfort instead of progress. You do not feel any loss in that moment. There is no immediate consequence. No one reminds you. But that does not mean you are not paying a price. That price is paid in the future, in the opportunities you do not have, in the skills you never learned, in the version of yourself you never became. I often ask a very simple question. What is the price of 1 hour? Not an hour you work, but an hour you completely control, an hour you can learn, an hour you can build, an hour you can change your direction. If you use it for intentional entertainment, that is a choice. But if you lose it unconsciously, that is a cost. And that cost is very expensive. Think about it this way. If you spend 2 hours every evening on things that do not move you forward, in 1 year you have spent more than 700 hours. 700 hours. That is no longer a small amount of time. That is a portion of your life. And the scariest part is, You do not even feel it disappearing. You do not see it. You do not measure it. You just live and it passes. I used to be like that. I also chose the easy path. I also said tomorrow. But then I realized something. Comfort is not free. It always has a price. And the question is not whether you will pay. The question is what you are paying with. Are you paying with time, or are you paying with your future? Because every time you choose comfort instead of progress, you are sending a very clear message to yourself. My future is not as important as my present feelings. And when you repeat that message long enough, it becomes how you live. But here's what matters. I'm not saying you must eliminate all comfort. You do not need to work every minute. I am only saying you need to be aware of your choices. If you watch a movie, choose it. If you rest, decide to rest. But do not let your most valuable hours slip away unconsciously. Because when you start controlling those hours, something will change. You move from consuming to creating, from passive to active. And that is when you realize you do not need more time. You just need to use it better. Ask yourself one question. If every evening has a price, would you still spend it the way you are now? Because that answer will determine whether you are building your life or slowly losing it. And when you decide to make the trade, when you choose progress over comfort, you will enter a harder phase, not because it is complex, but because it requires you to do something very few people can do. Stay disciplined, even when no one is watching. And that is exactly what we are going to dive into next. Lesson 7. Discipline in the margins builds character in the center. I want you to understand something very important. Discipline is not formed when things are easy. It is formed when you have a choice. When you are tired but still decide to do a little more. When you have no motivation but still start. When no one is watching, but you still keep your promise to yourself. That is where discipline is born. You see, many people think discipline is something you need to have to succeed. But in my experience, discipline is not something you already have. It is something you build through small decisions every day. And the best place to build it is not during working hours. Because at work, you have responsibility. You have pressure. You have supervision. But outside of work, no one tells you what to do. No deadlines. No immediate consequences. Only you and your choices. That is why I call that time the real test. You can say you are serious. You can say you want to change. But how you use 1-2 hours each evening is the real answer. Because discipline is not what you do when you have to. Discipline is what you do when you do not have to. And every time you stay disciplined in those moments, something very important happens. You start to trust yourself. Not explosive motivation, not temporary emotion, but a very quiet yet powerful belief. I am someone who does what I say. And when you have that belief, everything starts to change. You no longer need someone to push you. You no longer depend on inspiration. You begin to become the person who leads your own life. That is when discipline is no longer effort. It becomes part of who you are. I remember my early days, discipline was very hard for me. I was tired. I wanted to rest. I wanted to choose the easy path. But I started with one simple standard. Even if it is just 30 minutes, I must do something for my future. No need to be perfect. No need to do a lot. Just do not skip. And when I did that long enough, something interesting happened. Discipline was no longer something I had to force. It became something I did not want to break. You see, when you keep your promises to yourself enough times, you begin to respect yourself more. And when you respect yourself, you no longer easily trade your future for temporary comfort. That is how discipline changes you. Not just in action, but in character. You become someone reliable, not to others first, but to yourself. And that is the foundation of all success. Because if you cannot trust yourself, no one else can do it for you. So ask yourself one question. Are you keeping your promises to yourself every day, or are you constantly breaking them? That answer will tell you where you are going. Because discipline does not just help you move forward. It defines who you are. And when you begin to build discipline, something else also becomes clearer. Not every dream fits you. Not every idea is worth pursuing. And the only way to know that is not by thinking, but by doing. We will talk about that next. Because part-time ambition does not just help you move forward. It helps you discover what is truly worth pursuing. Lesson 8, your side project tests. Whether your dream is real, I want you to face a very direct truth. Not everything you call a dream is something you truly want to pursue. Many people love the idea of a different life, but they do not love the work required to create it. They like the image of success, but they do not like the process. They like the result, but they do not like the discipline. And that is why many dreams look very attractive until you actually start doing them. That is the role of part-time ambition, not just to help you move forward, but to test yourself. When you start a small project after work, everything becomes very clear. You are no longer imagining. You are experiencing. You feel what it is like to work, even when you are tired. You feel what it is like when things do not go as planned. You feel what it is like when no one recognizes your effort. And in those moments, you will know, do you really want this, or do you just like the idea of it? I have seen many people say they want to start a business, but when they begin and realize they have to learn sales, face rejection, be patient for a long time without results, they stop. Not because they are not capable, but because they do not truly love that work. And that is not failure. That is a very important discovery. It is better to realize that while you still have a stable job, while you still have income, while you still have options, instead of realizing it too late, when you have already risked everything. That is why I always say, starting part-time is not just a smart strategy. It is a way to understand yourself. You can try many things, a new skill, a new field, a new direction, no pressure, no major risk. As long as you are serious enough to actually do it, not just think about it. And when you do it long enough, something very clear will happen. There are things you will quit, not because you are weak, but because they do not fit. There are things you will continue, even if they are hard, even if they are slow, even if no one sees, because you feel something different. You feel that you belong to it. That is the sign. A real dream is not something you only like when it is easy. It is something you continue, even when it demands more than you expected. And only action can help you distinguish those two things. Not thinking, not imagining, but doing. So ask yourself one question. Have you tried what you say is important to you seriously enough? Or are you still keeping it at the level of an idea so you do not have to face reality? Because clarity only comes through action. And when you start to see clearly, when you know what you should pursue, another question will appear. Not should I do it, but do I have the patience to build it all the way through? Because success does not come from those who start the most. It comes from those who continue the longest. And that is where many people make a mistake. They see a little result and they rush. They want to quit their job. They want to jump into the new path immediately. But real freedom does not come from rushing. It comes from preparation. And that is exactly what we will talk about next. When you are truly ready to transition from part-time to a bigger direction in your life. Lesson 9. Freedom must be earned before it is chosen. I want you to pause for a moment and think about something many people misunderstand. They think freedom is something you can decide instantly. They say, I am tired of this job. I want to live my own way. I want to do what I love. It sounds powerful. It sounds right. But in many cases, that is not freedom. That is impulsiveness. Real freedom does not come from leaving something. It comes from building enough so you no longer depend on it. You see, leaving is easy, but standing strong after leaving is what is hard. Many people see a little result from a part-time project and they think, this is it. This is my chance. They have one good month, a few clients, a little income, and they want to jump immediately. But they forget something very important. Success is not measured by a moment. It is measured by consistency over time. One good month means nothing. A few early results guarantee nothing. What you need is not a signal. You need a foundation, a stable enough income stream, a strong enough system, a solid enough habit. Because when you move into a new direction, everything will get harder before it gets easier. If you are not prepared, you will not just lose income, you will lose confidence. And that is the price many people pay when they rush. I am not saying you should not change. I am saying you should change intelligently. Let your results speak for you. When your part-time income becomes stable, becomes repeatable, begins to grow, when you no longer have to struggle too much to produce those results. When you have built a system, not just a few scattered efforts, that is when you begin to earn the right to choose. Not because you are tired of the old, but because you are ready for the new. That is the difference. Freedom is not escape. Freedom is the ability to choose. You can stay. You can leave. You can build a completely different path. But whatever you choose, you are no longer forced. And that feeling changes how you live. You no longer work because you have to. You work because you choose to. That is real freedom. I still remember that feeling. Not the day I left my job, but the day I realized I was no longer fully dependent on it. It was a very quiet feeling, but very powerful. No noise, no display, just a certainty inside. I can create my own path. And when you reach that point, you no longer rush. You no longer want to jump. You want to build. Because you understand what you are building is not just a new job. It is a new life. So ask yourself one question. Do you want freedom, or do you just want to escape your current discomfort? Because those two things are not the same. And if you are patient enough, disciplined enough, consistent enough, you will not need to run away. You will walk forward with confidence. And when you reach that point, you will realize something deeper. The greatest reward of this journey is not freedom. It is the person you become along the way. And that is exactly what we are going to talk about in the final part. Lesson 10. The greatest reward is the person you become. I want you to look back at the entire journey we have just gone through. Not to remember every principle, not to write down every idea, but to answer a more important question. What really changes when you start using your time intentionally? Many people think the biggest reward of part-time ambition is money, a second source of income, a better financial opportunity, a more comfortable life. But in my experience, that is not the greatest reward. The greatest reward is the person you become in the process. Think about this. When you start using your evenings to learn, to build, to move forward, you do not just change what you do, you change how you see yourself. You are no longer someone waiting for opportunities. You become someone who creates opportunities. You are no longer a consumer. You become a creator of value. You no longer live on autopilot. You begin to live with intention. And that is a deep transformation, because when the way you see yourself changes, all your actions begin to change as well. You start to believe you can learn new things. You start to believe you can create results. You start to believe you are not limited by your current circumstances. And that belief does not come from words. It comes from experience. Every hour you spend on self-development, every skill you learn, every time you overcome procrastination, all of that is evidence. Evidence that you can change. And when you have enough of that evidence, you no longer doubt yourself the way you used to. You begin to act faster, more decisively, more confidently. Not because you are no longer afraid, but because you know you can move forward even when you are afraid. That is growth. You also become more adaptable. You are no longer dependent on a single path. You no longer feel stuck when things change, because you have learned how to create value. You have learned how to adapt. You have learned how to start again if needed. That is a different kind of freedom. Not freedom of time, not freedom of money, but freedom of mindset. You are no longer limited by old fears. You are no longer tied to old ways of living. You begin to see the world as a place with more possibilities. And the interesting part is, when you change like that, the people around you begin to notice. They see you differently. They may not know exactly what changed, but they can feel it. You have more energy. You have clearer direction. You have a confidence you did not have before. And sometimes, your transformation becomes inspiration for others. Not because of what you say, but because of how you live. That is real influence. And when you look back after some time, you will realize the hours you once thought were small created very big changes, not just in your work, not just in your income, but in who you are. You are no longer the same person. You have become someone who can keep promises to yourself, move forward without being pushed, create value from what you have, and that is something no one can take away. So remember this. Part-time ambition is not about doing more. It is about living more consciously, not about working all the time, but about no longer living unconsciously. And if there is one thing in this video that made you pause, made you think differently, do not let it stop here. Start today, even if it is just 1 hour, even if it is just one step. And if you want to continue this journey, where each video does not just inspire but helps you change how you live every day, hit subscribe right now. Because I will be here to remind you of the things that a busy life often makes you forget. And I want to ask you one final question. Will you use tonight to move forward, or let it pass like every other day before? Write your answer in the comments. I truly want to read it. You and I both have the same gift. That is today. Use it wisely. See you in the next video.